Hello everyone and welcome to our 5th unit on collaboration. So this is our series on SAP Analytics Cloud and I'm focusing on planning. My name is Derek Johnson. I'm a product manager for SAP Analytics Cloud. So there's a few items that I'd like to cover as part of our collaboration capabilities. Two of the key things that we can do is from a planning perspective, is we rely on discussions to kind of work with different teams and keep ourselves kind of aligned as teams as well. And we rely on comments as well. And the comments provide breadcrumbs for others that are looking at a plan, but not necessarily someone that we're kind of trying to reach out directly on a specific issue. So from a discussion perspective, I think this has already been reviewed as part of the business intelligence unit. So I just want to kind of reiterate some of the key points here. Discussions are very useful for working with others if you're going to be looking at maybe why sales are down for a particular region, or maybe making updates to your plan as well. You can engage others in discussions as well and invite them into the discussion. You can attach reports in there, provide your commentary, attach an additional documentation, and really manage this within SAP Analytics Cloud. So there's really no reason to go out to external email systems and writing and trying to manage the discussion on updating your plan using external tools. So I think it really makes it convenient to manage this process all within SAP Analytics Cloud. The other key aspect of collaboration is really comments, and comments can only be made on public versions at this time. But comments are made on a cell level. So what happens is that you'll select a cell. Maybe the initial comment is for sales, and you say, my sales is 1,000. Maybe there's a question of that you want to increase sales by 10%. And would you do that? And then you can say, I'm increasing sales by 10%, and maybe you'll reference some sort of marketing campaign or business trends that may support that as well. But it really provides anyone that has access to that data region, that version, and the model to be able to see what your comments are. So not only are you able to store your comment, but you're able to have multiple comments from other users, and you can enter multiple comments on this cell as well. So this really is a great way of providing some breadcrumbs for others that are looking at the plan to better understand what some of the decision points are made and follow the flow of why the plan is, what the plan values are showing. So I encourage everyone to take a look at both discussions and the cell comments. And I know the cell comments are certainly included as part of the exercise, so you should do that, but feel free to further explore these as well, as I think it's a great way to really understand planning and collaborating with others in planning scenarios. The other key thing with cell comments that I did not mention is that it does keep context of the values at which the comment was made. And I think this is really important as well. So if you were to make a generic comment like we need to increase sales by 10%, if you go back to that cell, let's say a week later, what we would see is, or it could be any time later, what you'd see is the value of, let's say, 1,000 that was assigned to our sales, and we'd see the comment that we should increase it by 10%. So if we increase it by 11 or 10% and now it's 1,100, we look at the value. You would still see that comment, but you would see the value of 1,000 at which the comment was made that we should be increasing our sales. So it keeps the context of your comment in place as well. And I think that's critical for cell commenting. So from a business process perspective, the main way that we kind of manage overall business processes is through the calendar. So these keeps track of our milestone and tasks and activities, and we can display that in two ways. So we can display it in calendar format and in Gantt charts as well. So I think both formats are readily understandable, and I think it's just kind of a fantastic way to kind of take a look at your business processes holistically and get a sense for when things need to be done using tools that we're all comfortable with using. And lastly, with our collaboration is we're able to send out forms to others to update the plan. And this is really critical if you're updating something like sales and maybe it's uh, a number that needs to be updated by worldwide by a lot of different people. We can very easily do that through an input task and really kind of bring order to the process. So what an input task does is it would take a story or a story page, and it would then send out that page, and then that would be soliciting input. So it essentially sets a filter on that page, and then when someone receives the input tasks, they know that they're expected to fill out the task, and then they can submit that task once they've adjusted or created their plan and submit that back into approval. So there's a full approval process tied with input tasks as well, so that you can start to bring some order into a planning process and updating your plan. Certainly, depending on the scope of the plan, many people can be involved, and so input tasks are a critical way of managing this. Now let's take a look at a system where we can look at these planning capabilities in a little bit more detail.
For the demo here, we're going to open up the report that we've been working with. There's been a few changes to this report just to kind of streamline it for this particular scenario. So here, if we look, we see that we've added 40 people as part of our headcount for April. And we can just saw the comment there as well. We're now changing the value to 30 for April, and we're adding 10 in June. So really what we're trying to show here is how we can have multiple comments on a cell, and we're not really restricted to just having one comment. So here we're going to enter in a new comment, just saying that we're going to be hiring people at a later time as well as in April. So by creating comments, one of the things that you can see is that it records the value at which the comment was made. This is great. So if you had a comment originally like, hey, we need to hire more people, and then you've added, let's say, 40 people to part of your hiring, you'd have the context that, that there was an issue, it's been addressed, and you'd see the new value of 40 in that case, which would be good. We can also display comments in a report. So we've added a column here, we've selected the hires, and then we're displaying the comment. So it'll really be the last comment that gets displayed. So from a commenting perspective or cell comments, we can only create comments on public versions, so we cannot do that on private versions yet, just for you to be aware of that. So now we're looking at our second scenario where we'd like to focus on the input task. And what we're going to do is create a private version specific for the input task. So when we create an input task, this is going to be soliciting the input of others to update the plan. And it's really driven off a private version. So it'll create a private version, and then when we send out the input task, it'll create a special version called an input task version for updating. So one of the nice things with an input task is that we can include both public and private versions in our input task. So now we're going to send this out, and we want to say who we'd like to send it out to. What we can see here is that it's based on the entity dimension in our operating income model. There's a responsible member, and we fill that in with test for the Southeast region. So that's why this region is automatically populated in my scenario versus your model. So if we want to override or assign it on the fly, we can do that as well. And so you can do the select substitute and then add other people or another person to do that update. Once we're happy with it, we can send our form out to others. Here I'm just going to save the changes we made as part of our planning activities. So now I'm going to log in as our second user here. This is Tess, so this is the person that will be updating our Southeast region. And here you can see in the notifications that they've received a notification. If they've configured it, they would have received a notification via email as well if they chose to receive email notifications. So here we've selected the Southeast region. We can see that there's a page filter on the upper left-hand corner that is restricting to the southeast. We can make a change here. Perhaps we just want to add 10% to our sales just to keep this simple, and then we can submit that at a later time. We can also have access to our planning functions as well, which would make sense if this was a little bit more complex form. So here you can see the actual forecast versions as well as the variance calculations, and that all kind of comes through. When we go to submit the form, we're going to be asked for a comment. So we're just going to enter a simple comment saying that we're increasing sales by 10% in this case. And this comment is going to be visible to the approver, which will be our second user, which is under my ID. So that's why we're switching screens here. Now, when we look at the status of the submittal here from my original user's perspective, we now have the opportunity to approve or reject the submission. So we're not going to overthink this here. I just want to show some of the capabilities. So instead of going through that iterative loop of rejecting and correcting, and that we're going to just accept the plan change in this case. So here we're reviewing the plan change. We can see the changes that's been made, and then we can accept the specific update here. So if we had many people doing updates, you could approve them. You don't have to approve them all in one shot, but you could kind of incrementally improve them. Since we only have one person, we're going to approve, and then we can complete the task as well. And here we're going to open up the calendar just to show you that some of these items are showing up in the calendar as well. We're not going to really cover the calendar much, or we have not covered it in this session, and it will not be covered as part of the exercise either. But of course, you're free to explore it on your own as well. And here we've changed from the calendar view to the Gantt chart view, and you can see more of a project management perspective on this.